Chapter 254. Child did not say a word. He was purely defending. At this time, his shield of truth had been broken, and he no longer had the almost absolute defense ability. Baze, who had been forced to break through his limits, had fists that were sharper and more terrifying than any axe, hammer, or knife. They constantly tore apart Child's robe and flesh, bringing with them a thin layer of blood mist. Even so, Child was not knocked down by Baze. Even if the power of chaos continued to attack and erode him, there was still a fundamental order that always existed. No physical structure could compare to it. Baze punched again, forcibly blasting away Child's raised arm. The force of the punch penetrated Child's chest and into his lungs, crushing Child's chest until it visibly caved in. Child did not dodge. He used a hand bind and locked Baze's joints. The two of them instantly entered a more dangerous close combat. First, two heads collided with each other. In an instant, both sides were covered in blood. This collision also forced Baze's ferocious teeth back. Child was still holding on to Baze's elbow joint. Borrowing the force of the other party's charge and retreat, he pulled outwards, forcibly twisting Baze up and smashing him heavily into the rubble. But then, he was also knocked over by the brute force of Baze. The strength of the two humanoid beasts was terrifying. Under the force of the collision, the floor under the rubble could no longer withstand it. Even the steel frame collapsed with a loud bang. The two of them fell together, and their heads and faces were covered by the rubble above. But even so, in the narrowest space, they did not stop. Instead, they continuously hit each other's face, chest, and waist. The colliding shock waves swept away the rubble, avoiding the result of being buried. But before they landed on the ground, both of them were already vomiting blood. No matter how injured he was, Child remained as cold as iron. The opportunity he had been waiting for finally arrived after Baze's two unreserved waves of attacks. At the cost of another heavy elbow strike on his chest, he took advantage of the gap left by Baze's overexertion and performed a joint technique, forcefully twisting Baze's left elbow joint. Then, he took a heavy hit on his head and broke Baze's right shoulder. At this point, both of Baze's arms were broken. But even so, Baze was like a mad tiger. Ignoring his shattered shoulder and dislocated joints, he stood up and continued to fight. However, his rapidly declining athletic ability was no longer enough to support this kind of fighting style. Fairchild pulled away and delivered a series of combination punches, hitting Baze's chin, ears, and other vital points, concussing his brain and causing him to lose consciousness. Finally, Fairchild kicked Baze's lower abdomen, temporarily dispersing the inner chi he had lost control of. Boom! Baze was sent flying and smashed into a distorted pillar. A large amount of earth and rocks fell down and covered his body. In the end, he struggled to get up, but he still roared and screamed. Pure chaos and ruthlessness tormented the strongest man in Xia City to the point where he was neither human nor ghost. Fairchild panted slightly. As soon as he adjusted his breathing, he said, "Help." His voice was low, and it did not travel far. When he spoke, the area within a 20-meter radius around him was filled with dark clouds. Aside from the struggling Baze, there was no one alive. However, a mere 2 seconds after his voice fell, Fairchild's chest glowed with a faint light. The tetrahedron format pyramid was half embedded in the juncture between his chest and abdomen. It helped him adjust his energy and blood, alleviating his injuries. Fairchild extended his hand and adjusted his broken ribs. Some of them had already pierced into his internal organs, causing him to bleed. But as a powerful being who was only a step away from becoming an extraordinary, such injuries were far from fatal. After the broken ribs were pulled out and reset, the self-repair function of his internal organs began to display its effect. He retained at least 50 to 60% of his combat strength. Of course, the standard of comparison was in a state without the support of the shield of truth. There's still him. Fairchild extended his hand and pointed at Baze. Are you sure? Luo Nan's consciousness cut in from the mental plane. Fairchild had contacted Luo Nan through the order imprint that Luo Nan had projected earlier. This also showed that Luo Nan's existence in the logic world was no secret to a powerful being like Fairchild. He can still be saved, Fairchild replied calmly. I feel that you can do it. All right. With just a few words, all the pressure had been thrown onto Luo Nan's body. Of course, Fairchild knew that he was not answering Luo Nan's question. He explained, aside from Wang, the Order of Order has some prospects in Xia City. He and Jing Xiao. You need to preserve some of your vitality. Well, Luo Nan had nearly forgotten that Fairchild was a member of the Order of Justice. Even though he was an executioner of the truth side who was as incompatible as fire and water with the secular side, he was also a fanatical believer of the Order of Justice. It was hard to fathom Fairchild's current feelings in a situation where the Order of Justice had suffered such disastrous casualties. But thinking about it, Fairchild was far from being happy. As for Wang, Luo Nan did not finish his sentence, but his meaning was very clear. Was this the time to consider preserving some of his vitality? The giant shadow pillar was rising endlessly. And Wang's plans and methods were already as clear as day. The demon behind the scenes was far too powerful. If Wang could truly create a miracle and use the scales of truth and the holy space to control the demon in one fell swoop, then the people of the logic world would probably be purged once more. You're thinking too much, Fairchild responded simply. It's not your turn to interfere in a battle between extraordinaries. This was the standard truth, leaving Luo Nan speechless. He sighed soundlessly and no longer spoke nonsense. He gave Baze the support of the format pyramid. Compared to Fairchild's immediate effect, Baze's situation was not going smoothly. Right now, the inside of the black man's body was a mess. External and internal injuries were secondary. What was truly troublesome was the chaos element that had been forcefully poured into his body. This was a crude replacement. It was as if the chaos essence of the human-faced arachnid had been forcefully stuffed in, replacing all the functions of a human body. The fact that Baze's body did not explode on the spot only proved that Baze's body was tough to an inconceivable degree. It was useless to know the cause of the disease. Baze's chaotic essence had already fused deeply with Baze's after the previous frenzied assault. It was like a cup of water that had been soaked in ink. No matter how clear it was impossible for it to return to its original state. What's more, the amount of ink was greater than the cup of water itself. This was probably what it meant when the disease was beyond cure. Luo Nan switched to clairvoyance mode. He was no longer able to draw out Baze's constellation diagram if he used the life sketch method to observe. He could only draw something closer to the human-faced arachnid's dark clouds and shadows. In a certain sense, the current Baze could no longer be called a human. The chaotic essence of a demon had already deeply replaced Baze's original functions. This person should have died long ago, but he was still alive. Baze's powerful fleshly body and his crumbling internal foundation were mixed together to form this extremely special case. Chapter 255. Luo Nan's mental senses swept Baze inside out. The more he looked, the greater the pressure. The more he looked, the more he did not know what to do. For a time, his mind was filled with resentment toward Wang. That Wang. He didn't want to be a person, but he also conveniently tricked his own subordinate. Fine, Wang did not care about this at all. He was wholeheartedly working on the demon behind the shadows. You can save him. Fairchild repeated similar words. His confidence far exceeded Luo Nan's. How can I save him? Luo Nan did not need to pretend to communicate with Fairchild. He responded in a bad mood. His heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys are all unreliable. All of his functions are in chaos. They are all for the sake of accumulating the most explosive power. The verbal information suddenly stopped here. The efficiency of the exchange of information on the mental plane far exceeded that of a regular conversation. Fairchild understood Luo Nan's confusion and difficulties. Luo Nan also roughly understood Fairchild's train of thought. He even used more concise and accurate words to express himself. Build an order frame for him and restrain him. Just like that. Fairchild's train of thought was only a general idea. It originated from the feeling of order he received on the mental plane back at Frost River reality. Now that Luo Nan had added the finishing touch, Fairchild immediately praised, order frame. This description is very good. Of course it was good. Right now, and Wang was doing this. Yes, there was also Luo Nan himself. Through the conflict with Wang on the altar frame, Luo Nan gained a new understanding of many things that were previously fuzzy and unclear. Altar and sacrificial offering represented a kind of order. The essence of demons was indeed chaos, but it was chaos that was controlled by a certain order. There needed to be a large frame above the chaos. Otherwise, it would be chaos that was completely meaningless. The human-faced arachnid was the best example. The Wraith sign's many successful sacrificial offerings proved that this kind of chaotic existence could be accommodated within a high level of order. This was the only way to explain how a Darksider life form, which acted completely by instinct, could use efficient methods to make correct choices most of the time. The current base was a humanoid demon. Although it was a bit nondescript, there was no difference in essence. It would naturally be extremely difficult to make him return to his human state. However, it seemed feasible to just maintain it. Or even take it a step further. Luo Nan pondered for a moment before saying, if you don't mind this state, you might be able to preserve your life. But this will completely change the foundation. Is there any meaning to it? Fairchild shook his head slightly. He looked down at Baze, who was panting violently. He spent too much energy searching for his target, and he was left far behind by the cheating duo. In the end, Ouyang simply got lost. There was no need to talk about anything else. It was precisely because Ouyang was left behind that Wang shifted most of the energy he had placed on Ouyang to Luo Nan. He scanned Luo Nan over and over again, paying extreme attention. And Wang could not be blamed for doing this. Right now, the holy space was deep within the giant shadow pillar. It was attempting to control the demon, but it was not completely successful. Luo Nan traced it back through the chaos element on Baze's body. They occupied different sizes, inside and outside, but their levels were the same. Then the problem came: 2 frames, 2 elements, 2 directions. There was only one demon behind the scenes. Who did it listen to? It didn't want to listen to anyone. A restless roar penetrated through countless curtains into the logic world. The berserk power urged the dark clouds of shadow. The vortex seemed to have substance, corroding and tearing apart everything it covered. Dust filled the sky, and the 3 buildings swayed even more violently. Such a reaction allowed Luo Nan to confirm one step further. Perhaps the demon behind the scenes was thousands of times more powerful than the human-faced arachnid, but they were essentially the same goods. This fellow's reaction was practically the same as the burning wraith on the warship a dozen or so days ago, the previous incarnation of the wraith sign. They were both helpless when faced with this situation. The powerful instincts nurtured within their chaos could only be accomplished under a higher plane of order frame. Once this order frame encountered an attack, it would be more delightful to be captured without putting up a fight. Right now, Wang was pursuing the specific hierarchical structure of this order frame. He was simulating and overlapping in order to realize control over the demon. Wang had a clear direction. This was probably a hint given to him by the holy space. But Luo Nan had one as well. Chapter 256. A soft trembling sound rang through the void. With the human-faced arachnid as a living example, it was hard for Luo Nan not to associate it with the heavily chained crow. Over 10 days ago, Luo Nan had truly constructed the format and entered the level of "my heart's a prison." The speed of Luo Nan's progress was inconceivable even to Luo Nan. But he knew very well that up until now, the embodiment of his greatest ability was still the format pyramid and the heavily chained crow. This was the precious treasure left to him by his grandfather. Everything was born from this. Luo Nan was still unable to completely understand the mysteries within even to this day. He could only say that he had comprehended some basic principles. That was a frame. From the changes in the altar frame, it could be seen that the so-called dark chains were very much like the materialization of some high-level order frame. Luo Nan was unable to understand how his grandfather was able to assimilate this order frame into medicine, breathing, and visualization. It was branded onto the body of a cultivator, allowing them to grasp this high-level technique. But the most important thing right now was still the application. Luo Nan pondered to himself that the directivity of his heavily chained crow was not much inferior to Yin Wang's. It seemed that the crow was able to follow Luo Nan down a distance. But what was the point of doing that? By Xinyan and the others' mockery, Fairchild's warning at the same time, and all the previous lessons. Had he not suffered enough? Without thinking any further, the dark chains materialized and pierced through the void, piercing through Bei's head. This wasn't the first time Luo Nan had used the heavily chained crow on a living person, but this was certainly the first time he had a clear goal of order. Luo Nan did not understand or pay attention to the specific circulation of blood energy. His attention was completely focused on the effect of the order frame on the nature of chaos. To say that it was useful was an overestimation for him. Luo Nan had never been an expert in interfering with the material plane. Now, the direction of his development had begun to shift towards pure observation. To a large extent, he had given up on interacting with the material plane in exchange for outstanding performance in mental sensing. It was impossible for Luo Nan to turn Bei into a marionette. It was also impossible for Luo Nan to forcefully turn Bei onto a new orbit of order. All he did was guide Bei to see through the chaos mist and the higher level, new order, that was eroded by the chaos elements. With this, he could sort out the structure of Bei's body and soul and alleviate the damage caused by the chaos elements' erosion. The problem was that Bei had already lost his basic control. Even if there was a clear answer in front of him, it would be difficult for him to follow up. Luo Nan had long since anticipated this. This was the final fork in the road. Luo Nan gave Fairchild one last reminder. This is my order frame. Mine. But Luo Nan did not say anything. However, he did not say a word. He half knelt down and punched Bei in the chest. Bei spat out a mouthful of blood, which splattered all over Child's face. The latter was unfazed and threw another punch. However, at this time, Bei, who was paralyzed on the ground, straightened his upper body and used his chest to block Fairchild's fist halfway. At this moment, their eyes met. Fairchild raised his chin slightly. "If you want to live, follow me." Bei gasped for air. The pain caused by the corrosion and symbiosis of the chaotic elements was still ongoing. Inside and outside of his body, every blood vessel was twisting, and every muscle was twitching. In the midst of chaos, the human body's habitual functions and order had long since changed beyond recognition, and there was no possibility of recovery. Chaos. World, Nan. Nan. To say to the human body. And the human body function. And this was something that he was unable to accomplish in a short amount of time. And Luo Nan was currently demonstrating a certain possibility for him. Bei could only comply. He had no other choice. Bei closed his eyes. His breathing became hurried and chaotic. Then, it suddenly stopped. A few seconds later, it resumed, and the cycle repeated. At the same time, the muscles, bones, blood vessels, and internal organs of his body squirmed crazily. They matched the rhythm of his breathing. After repeating it 5 times, which meant that he had failed 5 times, Baze suddenly let out a wild roar. The back of his head slammed against the floor of the ruins. His body twitched violently, and his blood vessels bulged all over his skin, forming an ugly and ferocious image. Time passed second by second. The dark clouds and turbid mist stirred by the giant shadow pillar corroded layer after layer of the building. Parts of the building collapsed from time to time. The skyscraper was on the verge of collapse. A portion of the dark clouds and turbid mist came over. Of course, they could not harm Heir. They could do nothing to Luo Nan, but they were inexplicably attracted to the roaring Baze. They went in and out of his mouth and nose. It was as if they were making some sort of exchange. Heir was unmoved. He watched all of this in silence. Hiss. A long breath rang out. Baze suddenly exerted his strength. In a short 2 seconds, he actually sucked in all the mist around his body. His painfully struggling body swelled slightly. Then it suddenly froze, and he collapsed back onto the floor. He gasped for breath. His chest rose and fell clearly, but his breathing had already entered the range of that of a normal person. This meant that Baze had found a new order of life amidst the chaos and disorder. However, this might not be a satisfactory ending for Baze. Baze opened his eyes. His ice-cold eyes pointed at the night sky, unfocused. His malevolent aura was like a flame beneath a layer of ice. It was weak but tenacious. Luo Nan knew that this brother's gaze was directed at him. But what could he do? An interesting change appeared in the structure of the pyramid. Baze's figure silently appeared on the staff level. This was the result of Baze reconstructing the structure of his body and soul in accordance to the established order with the help of the heavily chained crow. Luo Nan had already explained this to Heir in advance. Heir tacitly agreed, but Baze might not be completely convinced. Fine, Baze would definitely reject Baze. Luo Nan did not have many examples of what sort of restrictions one would have to endure as a member of the format pyramid. The comparison was not strong. Wraith Sign, who was on the skill level, was very obedient. Cat Eyes, who was on the student level, was very unruly. As for Baze, who was on the staff level, the heavily chained crow suddenly trembled violently. Baze's body fiercely twitched amidst the rattling vibrations. Deep within the structure of his body and soul, a hook that had long since been warped and deformed shattered. In an instant, an obscure fluctuation penetrated through the air. Luo Nan was startled and shocked. He cried out in his mind, but before he could react, Wang's telepathic thoughts were like a long sword drawn from a furnace. They sliced through the air, bringing with them an intense burning pain. That hook was certainly the method Wang used to control ablatum knights like Baze. Even though Baze had been abandoned by Wang, it was hard to avoid alarming Wang when this sort of change occurred. However, the reason for Wang's intense reaction was not as simple as losing Baze. Luo Nan had realized his control over Baze. He had erected a restraining order on top of Baze's chaotic essence. In a certain sense, this was tantamount to controlling a portion of the power of the demon behind the scenes, even if it was a portion that had been abandoned. This was just like Wang trying to control a continent. He had turned the sky and earth upside down, but he had yet to obtain any results. But Luo Nan, who was next to Wang, had first taken control of a small island that had separated from the main body of the continent due to a volcanic earthquake. This was probably what it felt like. Metaphors could describe reality, but in the end, they could not replace reality. Luo Nan and Wang did not have the relationship of an island and a continent. There was no vast ocean between them. There was only an indescribable distance of sensing. It was too dangerous. If Luo Nan was Wang, he would probably think the same. Plus, there was another element that seeped in. The sound in the deep space was not an echo, but a resonance. Using this concept of physics, the current state of the heavily chained crow could be described as being at the same frequency as something else. One side affected the other side, and the other side affected the other side. The originally minuscule amplitude suddenly expanded. Of course, it made it impossible for the heavily chained crow to hide, but it also made an even more obscure existence in the depths of space appear. Hua la la. Roar. The second half was the roar of a demon. Ever since the sound of the chains reverberated on this plane, this powerful demon had become extremely irritable. The power that was about to withdraw from the logic world swept out as a form of venting. The high floors of the building collapsed one after another wherever it passed. Rubble flew everywhere. Spectators like Fairchild, Bays, and Jingxiao had to dodge in a hurry to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Of course, the demon's attack involved the mental plane. The corresponding sweep was extremely powerful. If it was possible, it would certainly crush the few little fleas inside and outside of its own domain to death. Then it would chew and swallow them. However, it was not easy to accomplish this. The current Luo Nan was no longer the fledgling who would tremble with fear when facing the human-faced arachnid siege hammer. Right now, his sensing method of pure observation manifested a marvelous advantage. This completely effortless method allowed Luo Nan's mental senses to melt into the air. It was formless and incorporeal, but it was everywhere. Under the storm-like mental attack, Luo Nan's mental senses might distort for a moment, but the recoil force he received was extremely small. It didn't even hurt or itch. Under these circumstances, it did not matter whether the buildings of the logic world survived or not. To put it bluntly, it was nothing more than a silhouette that intervened between the void and reality. The limit of the logic world's endurance was the major problem. As the demon's power continued to bombard the world, a clear tremor appeared in the night sky. Corresponding ripples appeared frequently, warping and turbulent. The world was on the verge of collapse. Fairchild and Bays were both nimble people when the skyscraper collapsed. It was hard for them to be affected by their injuries, so it was easy for them to dodge the attack. However, Fairchild's expression changed a bit when he saw the ripples in the void. Withdraw. Fairchild's words were directed at Luo Nan. He and Bays did not move. After the logic world was established, mental senses could not enter and exit. If a living person wanted to leave, they would need to obtain the permission of Ouyang Qin, the creator of the logic world, or they would need to forcefully break through the spatial barrier. The problem was that under the influence of this, the mental plane, which was not peaceful in the first place, became even more chaotic. Curtains and tape measures flew everywhere. The specific location of the demon and Wang was immediately drowned in the chaotic flow of information. It was difficult to grasp. This was a cover. Luo Nan immediately made a preliminary judgment. This sudden storm had come far too coincidentally. It was hard for one not to suspect the intentions behind it. Who did it? Did the Order of Justice still have hidden experts in Xia City? Guild Master. They should be here soon. Luo Nan's thoughts were completely known to Ouyang Qin through communication on the mental plane. Ouyang Qin didn't even have the basic fluctuations in his emotions. He gave Luo Nan an evaluation of the sudden change in the situation, then he gave Luo Nan some background information. And Wang, the target he's trying to control, holds a very important secret. Many people and powers are interested in it. I think it's necessary for the association to seize the initiative. If we can lock onto that demon's position, that would be the best. Luo Nan was speechless. How could they lock onto it? The demon had destroyed the logic world, causing chaos. It was unknown where the mental storm came from. It was truly extraordinary to use it to cover the retreat. Even if it was Ouyang Qin, in a short amount of time, another change occurred in the void before Luo Nan could finish his thought. Another force surged up. It was like a tall cliff that suddenly rose up. It suppressed the void, blocking the mental storm that filled the air in the distance. The chaotic situation on the mental plane inexplicably eased up quite a bit in this moment of absent-mindedness. This sort of suppressive ability to go from motion to stillness was much more brilliant than pure destruction. But for some reason, there was a feeling of danger as it suppressed here. It wasn't that it was unstable. Instead, there was an even more powerful and active essence within its majesty. Luo Nan had plenty of experience with mental senses, but this was the first time he had seen the spirit of, I am not the mountain comes and I will. In comparison, Fairchild was far too pure, and Ouyang Chin was calm and low-key from beginning to end. Their characteristics were not as distinct and unforgettable as this person. Who was this person? It looked like he was on their side. Why didn't he make a move when the situation was better just now? Luo Nan muttered to himself, but Ouyang Chin was not the least bit surprised. He just transmitted a new thought over. I was thrown too far just now. I don't have enough strength to lock onto the demon's position. I need you to help me confirm. Ouyang Chin magnanimously admitted that Luo Nan was more outstanding than him in terms of tracking and sensing on the mental plane. Ouyang Chin admitted it, but Luo Nan found it a bit hard to accept. I didn't lock onto it. The only thing Luo Nan could confirm right now was that the demon's position was in the extreme depths of the mental plane. The construction of the logic world distorted the curtain, causing it to approach the material plane. This gave the demon the opportunity to appear. Right now, the structure of the logic world had collapsed, and the curtain had returned to its original position. This was the time of upheaval, and they interacted with each other. It was simply like the scattered pages of a book dancing in the gale. The difficulty of finding the demon and Enweng right now was equivalent to locking onto a page of a book and searching for a single stroke error amidst the densely packed words. Just thinking about this project made Luo Nan feel a chill run down his back. He didn't have a back to chill for the time being. Ouyang Chin was very clear about the difficulty of this matter. He had no intention of pressuring Luo Nan. A general direction is fine. You can combine it with this diagram. It was still pure information that cut in, but this time the amount was much greater. It made Luo Nan a bit dizzy. The information that seeped in was just as Ouyang Chin said. It was similar to an image, but it was far too complex. A one-way view and a three-dimensional diagram were no longer able to represent it. After the analysis was done, it was like Luo Nan was stuffed into an immersion device, allowing him to personally experience the complexity and richness of the image. This was the benefit of communicating on the mental plane. Luo Nan soon understood that this was the structural design diagram of the logic world. After combing out the general outline, Luo Nan felt at first glance that the structural model of the logic world was like a thick sponge cushion. It surrounded everything in all directions. There were 3 to 4 layers stacked inside and outside, and then they pressed down together from the outermost layer. Luo Nan could represent the material plane, while the sponge cushion represented the mental plane. The higher levels of the mental plane exerted force, forcefully distorting the overlapping layers of structure. This caused the extremely distant mental plane to tear apart the barrier in the middle, directly interfering with the material plane. That was probably how it was. Luo Nan finally understood the basic method of constructing the logic world. Of course, it was absolutely not easy to accomplish this. It was impossible to do without the power of an extraordinary. Plus, how many layers of sponge cushions? Was there a problem with the thickness? Luo Nan could sense that the mental plane was also a multi-layered structure, but the description of 1,000 layers of curtains should be more accurate. The deeper he went into the mental plane, the more intense this feeling became. Either the layers overlapped, or they floated here and there. Oh, it should be a simplified model. How could the difficulty of calculating the deformation of just 3 to 5 layers be the same as calculating the deformation of hundreds to thousands of layers? Even if Ouyang Qin could calculate it, Luo Nan probably wouldn't be able to receive it. Luo Nan found a reasonable explanation, and his mind calmed down quite a bit. Since he was going to start with this model, the slightest difference would lead to a deviation of 1,000 miles. There was no hope for precision. He thought for a bit and drew a circle with his mind on this image. This was the area he felt was the most suitable. With this circle, he felt that there were at least 100 curtains that needed to be sorted out and confirmed. If the target curtains just happened to flutter a bit during this period of time, wasting all his previous efforts would be the only outcome. After drawing the circle, Luo Nan felt more and more unreliable. However, Ouyang Qin was quite satisfied with Luo Nan's answer. The direction is very convincing. We can give it a try. If it doesn't work, then we can study it again. But just as the thought arose, the turbulence on the mental plane, which had already subsided somewhat, suddenly became intense once more. The one who had provided cover for Enweng had repeatedly attacked the suppression cliff to no avail. He switched to a different method. He began to jump back and forth in various areas of the mental plane. Sometimes, he even touched upon the material plane. He stirred the clouds and gave rise to waves. He directly affected the existence of the logic world. Everyone could see that the complete collapse of the logic world was only a matter of time. Ouyang Qin did not say anything else. He did not consult Luo Nan for his opinion either. He changed the portion of power that protected Luo Nan's mental senses a bit, sending the mental senses of this publicly acknowledged troublemaker out of the logic world. By the time Luo Nan came back to his senses, his soul body was floating outside the conjoined buildings of the real world. The main body of Frost River reality, which had been smashed to pieces in the logic world, was still safely and unscathed within the darkness. On the other hand, Luo Nan's Star River diagram was growing more and more chaotic. It was only at this time that Luo Nan discovered that the clash between the two powerful individuals was not limited to the logic world. Their powers possessed astonishing penetrative power and stability. They forcefully broke through the barriers of the logic world and transmitted their attacks to this plane. Even though Luo Nan's mental senses were completely powerless, the construction of his life sketches was truly affected. The pressure increased greatly. Luo Nan did not need to think too much. He began to rapidly shrink the range of his senses. From his perspective, this was something that could be done with a single thought. But soon, he felt that something was wrong. The Star River diagram was a combination of life sketches. It was equivalent to a drawing that Luo Nan had personally drawn. This thing could not be withdrawn or deleted just because he wanted to. The corresponding information had already been deeply engraved in his mind. It had a real and tangible effect on Luo Nan. On the mental plane, information and energy were interconnected. When the range of his senses expanded out, it was nothing more than this. But when it suddenly contracted, the complex information could be compressed. The corresponding energy converged into a flood and brushed past Luo Nan's soul body. Whether it was his soul or his main body that was over a dozen kilometers away, all of them trembled. Luo Nan was no stranger to this feeling. Every time the sacrificial ritual was completed within the altar frame, every time the wraith sign obtained a great harvest from its hunt, the corresponding feedback would always arrive. His soul was growing stronger, and trouble followed him like a shadow. This time, it seemed to be a bit bigger. In the past, the endurance of his soul body had yet to reach its peak. But this time, it was completely different. The range of his senses had shrunk by less than half. The swelling, exploding, and dizziness were endlessly magnified. This caused the gathering and operation of energy and information to show signs of losing control. What was even worse was that the two powerful individuals were clashing on the mental plane right now. Large amounts of useful and useless energy and information were stuffed in. His soul body had reached its limit. Or could it be said that the operating structure of energy and information, the amount of energy and information that the soul configuration could handle, had finally reached its limit? This loss of control caused the boundaries of the large amounts of information to blur and muddle together. Which was his self-awareness? Which were the insignificant memories and impressions on the periphery? These things were needed together. They interfered and influenced each other. It seemed that they would soon be unable to operate. No, this absolutely could not happen. Luo Nan knew that he could not continue like this. He needed a buffer, a flood outlet. He couldn't think of anything else right now. He could only rely on his previous successful experience. The external neuron. A bolt of lightning pierced his mind. Luo Nan's body bounced up and fell back down within the car. He began to convulse on the brink of death. The numbers of the instruments on the scene rose and fell violently. They didn't go all the way down. Instead, they jumped back and forth, each one off the charts. It was as if they had fallen into a powerful magnetic field. They no longer had any value as a reference. Everyone in the car, from Bai Xinyan to Zhang Yingying, from Shuelei to Red Fox, Cat Eyes, and Papercut, were indescribably shocked. Rustling sounds rang in the ears of several members of the society at this time. The psychic wave network, which had stopped functioning for some time, began to restore communications. It was just that the first wave of information was quite strange. Amidst the rustling noise that was like the rise and fall of a tide, thoughts that opposed each other with equal harshness materialized into cold and hard words. All those who profane the holy object are to be purged by the order. Then let the war begin. The leisurely and unhurried reply was like a gentle breeze brushing past the ears. But the inner meaning of the words, as well as the corresponding strength and identity, made the members of the society look at each other in dismay. Then everyone turned their gazes to a single person at practically the same time. "What the hell is your boss doing?" Zhang Yingying spread her hands. She was rarely speechless. The military mini unmanned submarine that he had bought with a lot of money leapt out like a barracuda. The meaningless venting of his emotions made him lose the best opportunity. The brown-haired rat that had dived out from beneath the sandbar had leaped under the front of the mini submarine. Its underwater speed was surprisingly fast. Xie Junping didn't say anything else. He gritted his teeth and activated the fire control system. Who knew that the target would swing its long tail and crash into the thick layer of mud underwater, stirring up a large amount of black mud and forcibly escaping from the lock of the fire control system. At this time, the mechanical spider that had entered automatic mode also crashed into the water. This thing was amphibious. Even if it couldn't float, it could still step on the mud at the bottom of the water to chase. This seems to be more effective. Xie Junping frantically tried to change the control mode, but how could he make it in time? In the end, he simply gritted his teeth and said, "Telekinesis mode." He immediately controlled the simpler mini-submarine and entered telekinesis mode. Combined with the automatic cruise function, it shuttled back and forth in the water. Xie Junping, on the other hand, endured the dizziness and strain of multitasking and controlled the mechanical spider to chase all the way. In the small lake in the swamp, muddy water flowed everywhere. The fish and prawns in the water and the birds and beasts on the lake were all alarmed. It was a mess. 5 minutes later, Xie Junping roared and smashed the joystick in his hand. Oh my God! Hu Huaying, who was coming in from the work elevator, saw a black shadow coming straight at his head. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and dodged to the side. The unidentified flying object brushed past his ear and heavily smashed into the inner wall of the elevator behind him. When he heard the explosion, his scalp went numb. He opened his mouth and wanted to curse, but he saw Xie Junping's helmet on top of his head. He was flustered and exasperated, but he almost twisted his neck because of his excessive emotions. Hu Huaying rolled his eyes and stopped cursing. But he didn't help either. He crossed his arms and watched Xie Junping torment himself. After Xie Junping took off his helmet and other peripherals, he mocked, "Brother Ping, you're getting more and more stingy. It's not a good time to go to Frost River Reality. Just a full set of equipment. A joystick is nothing. I'm not playing games. Full set of equipment my ass. What do you play if not games? You don't understand." Xie Junping wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he just waved his hand. He looked helpless, but the flames that burned in his eyes did not weaken in the slightest. He took a few deep breaths and adjusted his emotions. What did the social worker's office say? Hu Huaying shrugged. It seems the Mystic Arts Research Society is really going to shrink. They're holding a change of leadership ahead of time. Old Du is going to retire. I think the possibility of borrowing the slope to get out of the donkey is a bit higher. It's said that there's a problem with one of their big financial backers. They might have to withdraw their investment. Xie Junping frowned and put down the helmet in his hand. He waved at Hu Huaying, indicating that the two of them should stop chatting in the control room and take the elevator to the surface. When he entered the elevator, he kicked the deformed multifunction joystick out of the elevator. It was obvious that he was still in a bad mood. The Rainbow Fund behind the Construction Society is very stable. So what? Hu Huaying spread her hands. I don't see any difference. The main thing is that our junior brother Luo has enemies all over the world. Li Shueching of the Construction Society is certainly troublesome, but didn't Huang Bingjin go to the hospital and not come out? Those grandsons of the Divine Research Society are rolling up their sleeves and getting ready to demand justice. From what I see, it doesn't matter who takes over, it's all the same. What does junior brother Luo think? Xie Junping did not immediately answer. The elevator door opened and the two arrived at the tea house on the 3rd floor of Gear. Xie Junping randomly found a recliner and laid his body on it. He lay there paralyzed, looking up at the sky and sighing. The setting sun shone down, sending the last remnants of the day's warmth into the room. The AI service terminal promptly delivered black tea at a suitable temperature. Xie Junping reached his hand out, wanting to take it, but he was too lazy. He hooked his finger around the porcelain cup's handle and turned his eyes. He looked around at the layout of the society building. It had always been cold and cheerless, but it was subtly different from 2 weeks ago. Over 10 days of single-handedly managing was the result. After a long time, Xie Junping sighed. No one wants to give it to me. Ha! In any case, I don't want to give it to anyone. Xie Junping closed his eyes on the recliner. The evening wind blew through the forest. It seeped through the window and blended into the setting sun's afterglow, dispelling the cold air. It then gracefully coiled around the large courtyard of the 15-story building. It seemed to carry a rhythmic whistle, low, thin, and long. The restless mood outside all day could be unwittingly washed away here, leaving behind only a wondrous tranquility. Well, except for that brown-skinned rat's challenge. As his thoughts turned, Xie Junping's line of sight seemed to extend all the way to the withered tree's sandbar, merging with the spider platform and the miniature submarine there. The black mud that had chased after him underwater had already calmed down. What kind of chase would it be next time? Thinking about it this way, it was quite exciting. A light challenge wasn't too bad either. Ha! Xie Junping suddenly stared blankly. How could the scene in his mind suddenly be so clear and real? It was as if the underwater camera had captured it and sent it over. He suddenly sat up, but before he could think clearly, Hu Huaying on the other side was already drunk. My brother Ping. Right now we're talking about junior brother Luo. Luckily, Luo Nan didn't use his eyes much right now. He naturally knew what changes were happening outside. He extended his hand and knocked on the inner wall of the cabin. He sent a message through the hexier in his ear. "Good afternoon, Sister He. Isn't this Secretary He?" Bai Xinyan, who was looking through the surveillance records, said casually. No one paid any attention to her. He Yuan wore a neat and tidy professional suit. She stood outside the healing pod. Though Luo Nan might not be able to see her clearly, she still gave a slight bow out of habit. "Good afternoon, Mr. Luo. It would take some time for the nutrient fluid to be completely extracted." He Yuan used the hexier to ask about Luo Nan's specific situation. Luo Nan grunted and grunted in response. There were some words that he could not understand, and he was unable to explain them clearly. A week had passed since the incident at Frost River Reality. His original plan to return to school and study had died in the womb. His permission to leave the hospital had been revoked, and he was once again placed under 24-hour surveillance. Bai Xinyan was personally in charge of this. One could see just how negative the society's judgment of Luo Nan's body's condition was from the way they handled things. But Luo Nan really didn't think so. Unfortunately, he couldn't say it. He Yuan also discovered that asking Luo Nan was actually useless. In the end, she still needed to find a professional. She looked at Bai Xinyan. Bai Xinyan casually tapped the flexible screen interface. The gain value hovers between -17 and -25. It's an acceptable range. As I said just now, it's relatively stable. The so-called gain value was also known as the effect value. It was a quantification of the degree of coordination between the body and soul in Bai Xinyan's laboratory. Generally speaking, it reflected the way, structure, and degree of mutual interference between the mental and material planes were good or bad. A positive value represented a positive gain and a positive effect. A negative value represented a negative effect. A zero value represented no gain and no decrease. Looking at this standard, the higher the gain value, the better. It was normal for a normal ability user to gain or lose 1 or 2 points under normal circumstances. It was more obvious when it went over 10 points. Luo Nan's gain value was negative, and it broke through 20 points. It was certainly a more serious type. But at this level, a normal person's state would be like an avalanche. He could still fluctuate up and down. He was indeed relatively stable. How stable is he? There aren't any particularly intense mood changes. As long as he doesn't do any intense exercise, he should have no problems living a normal life as a sickly invalid. Actually, there's no point in looking around. Moderate exercise, moderate rest, and maintaining a good mood are more important than anything else. The other is an order with a clear doctrine. What can the society bring out? Some sort of lifestyle. Perhaps they can borrow a shell and use it in another direction. Chapter 261. The general he that Bai Xinyan spoke of should be referring to He Yuan's father, the high-ranking officer of Xia City's coastal defense force, He Busheng. Speaking of which, this person could be considered Crag Burst's old superior. He was relatively low-key in the military and had a decent reputation. However, the most powerful member of the He family was He Yuan's grandfather, General He Chong. That man was one of the brightest generals of World War III, once serving as the highest commander of the space exploration fleet directly under the Star Alliance Committee. He was a standard military bigshot who had retired many years ago, but he had countless old acquaintances in the military and held a lofty position. He Busheng had the shadow of his father, and his conduct was quite commendable. If he were to enter the political arena after he retired, there was indeed a lot of hope for him to become an administrative official of his hometown, Xia City. Of course, this involved a rather complicated layer of politics. The ability user society was already outside the scope of Luo Nan's understanding. He racked his brain to think, but he couldn't figure it out. Instead, his throat felt itchy and he started coughing again. From start to finish, He Yuan had no interest in such topics. It was as if the person Bai Xinyan was talking about was someone completely unrelated to her. Seeing Luo Nan cough, she brought a cup of water over to him. She smoothly and logically changed the topic back to Luo Nan. Mr. Luo's nervous system damage shouldn't be worsening right now, right? Bai Xinyan chuckled. Her gaze swept across Luo Nan's face. Frankly speaking, it's very hard for there to be a clear improvement. I've spent too much time right now to help him control the rate at which his soul strength grows. This has caused the medical progress to lag greatly. If this continues, then the amount of time we spend together day and night will increase. Student Luo Nan, are you sure you didn't do this on purpose? Luo Nan corrected him earnestly from the bottom of his heart. The Frost River waterway is where I spend all my time. Actually, there was no problem with Bai Xinyan's professional explanation. Luo Nan's biggest problem right now was the uncontrollable growth of his soul strength. The drawing of the life sketches, the understanding of the order framework, the sacrificial hunting of the wraith symbol, and so on had pushed his soul power to new heights time and time again. Luo Nan even discovered that as long as he released his mental senses, as long as he used clairvoyance and cognition, the growth of his soul strength would run through the entire process. It was like the autumn rain on a calm lake. Unknowingly, it had overflowed the bridge and overflowed the embankment. Naturally, it put more and more pressure on the body. In response, Bai Xinyan's treatment method was the Frost River path. This could be considered a sort of cage therapy. Especially with the growth of Luo Nan's soul strength, the transformation ratio in the plan grew larger and larger. It was no longer in the scope of simple nerve restoration. Even Octopus, who was in charge of contacting Dr. Clay, was a bit unsure. Luo Nan's thoughts weren't hidden deep enough. Bai Xinyan saw through him with a glance. It's not rare for a patient to reject a doctor's treatment plan. It's not uncommon for patients to prescribe their own medicine. But imagination isn't a scalpel. Even if it is, it will only stir up a mess here. Her slender fingers drew a circle near her temple. Clearly, she was talking about a certain someone's brain damage. Luo Nan mumbled to himself, what's the point of self-logic? Oh, student Luo Nan wants to discuss the principles of treatment for ability users. In terms of professional knowledge, even 10 Luo Nans tied together were no match for Bai Xinyan. Naturally, Luo Nan wouldn't argue with her. He could only lower his head in silence. He Yuan opened her mouth to speak. Before Dr. Clay arrived and confirmed the treatment plan, Mr. Luo's situation had always been variable. A week ago, we probably wouldn't have imagined that things would turn out like this. Bai Xinyan raised her eyebrows. That's true. Luo Nan gaped. He couldn't tell whether He Yuan was helping him out of his predicament or if she was stabbing him in the back. He Yuan didn't give him too much time to think. She spoke directly to him. Mr. Luo, I'm very happy to see that your state has stabilized. So, according to the requirements of the Society's new member training, the Society has decided to arrange a series of general knowledge learning missions for you. The intensity and difficulty aren't high, but a certain degree of concentration is required. I hope you can prepare yourself. As she spoke, He Yuan transmitted a study schedule through the Hexier. Luo Nan skimmed through it. It included knowledge learning, skill practice, mission practice, and so on. It seemed to conform to the norm, but why did the lecturers all look so familiar? He Yuan was at the top of the list. Her course was World Order in and out of the Psychic Wave Network. There was also Crag Bursts, Universal Commands Crash Course, Bamboo Poles, Notes on the Most Important People in the World, and even Red Foxes at Tracking and Anti-Tracking Practice, Paper Cuts, Soul Strength Activation Techniques, and so on. Chapter 262. Bai Xinyan asked him with a beaming smile, do you know them all? This judgment was a bit amazing. Bai Xinyan definitely could not see the information on the psychic wave network. How could she guess it? Bai Xinyan met Luo Nan's rare gaze of admiration and blinked. It's easy to guess. It's easier to accept a troublemaker like you after interacting with you. You must be joking. It's because you're already marked in the hearts of many people. The society has no confidence in their methods of keeping secrets, so they created a relatively closed circle for you. Unfortunately, your ability to cause trouble is probably useless. Luo Nan had an embarrassed expression, but he was secretly alarmed. It was mainly because he heard the word closed. He subconsciously flipped through his class schedule. Learning things was great, but he absolutely did not want to be sealed in a small circle. He had already spent 2 weeks in the hospital. He could endure the loneliness, but how could research and being researched be the same? Yuan seemed to have seen through his thoughts. Considering Mr. Luo's situation in school, the training time is mainly arranged at night. There's no conflict. Between the lines, it was a refutation of Bai Xinyan's closed-door attitude. Luo Nan gave him a wake-up call. Yeah, he had nearly forgotten about going to school. It was already the middle of October. He had actually devoted half of his high school time to the hospital. If this continued, it would be hard to avoid having to stay a year. He consulted Bai Xinyan, with my situation, when can I go back to school and attend classes? As long as you can guarantee 10 practice sessions at Frost River Reality in the morning and in the evening, you can go back anytime. Bai Xinyan's reply was direct and efficient, but she still stabbed him in the back. I thought you were playing dumb and not mentioning it. Luo Nan vowed not to talk to Bai Xinyan again tonight. Yuan looked at her watch. If it's convenient for Mr. Luo, can we start right now? Up to you guys. I'm fine with it. Luo Nan and Bai Xinyan hurried over together. They could not help but roll their eyes. You guys do what you need to do. Bai Xinyan giggled as she packed up her equipment. After everything was in order, she waved her hand and bid them farewell. Even though Luo Nan was on guard against her in every possible way, he had no choice but to admit that she really did have the flavor of a woman. It could even be said to be pleasing to the eye. But who knew that in this moment of absent-mindedness, Bai Xinyan's slender and moist fingertips would gently wipe Luo Nan's cheek. Focus on class. Don't get distracted. Oh right, it's best if you go take a bath first. Bai Xinyan twirled her fingers and walked out with a smile. Luo Nan grinned. His face was a bit hot, but it was more of a headache. Coincidentally, Yuan's line of sight fell on him. Embarrassed, he blurted out, I'm going to take a bath. As soon as the words left his mouth, he wanted to slap himself. Yuan was as calm as ever. She said softly, your wariness is too obvious. Luo Nan was stunned for a moment. The more nervous you are, the more white salt wants to tease you. That's just how she is, a typical feline. This was the first time Luo Nan had seen Yuan describe a person behind his back. But was this an admonishment or an endorsement? Everyone should have a secret that only they know. Mr. Luo's attitude is correct. It's just that there's still room for adjustment. I hope that this period of training will bring about a certain change. As she spoke, Yuan raised her hand slightly, indicating for Luo Nan to do as he pleased. It looked like Yuan was on guard against Bai Xinyan. Luo Nan let out a sigh of relief in his heart after obtaining her approval. He thought about the following classes and rushed into the bathroom. He took a combat bath and changed into his normal clothes. He obediently returned to listen to Yuan's class after he was refreshed. Let's start with the application of the Heir. Yuan had promised to teach him the relevant knowledge of the Heir and the psychic wave network 2 weeks ago. Before this, Luo Nan had only obtained some basic knowledge from Zhang Yingying. He could feel that Yuan's class was far more complete and rigorous than Zhang Yingying's. Perhaps it was less interesting, but in a practical sense, it was much more effective than the so-called happy education. Luo Nan gained a clearer understanding of the 6 communication layers of the Heir in a short amount of time. He also did some strengthening exercises on some of the functions frequently used by the members of the society. Of course, He Yuan's teaching goals were far from just this. It could be seen from the name of her class that it was an extremely macro topic. The Heir and the psychic wave network were just a starting point. Of course, these things would only be revealed later. He Yuan's ability to grasp time was absolutely top-notch. The first class lasted approximately 40 minutes, ending just in time for family visitation. Luo Nan could see from the communication screen that today was quite lively. Shuelei had also arrived, aside from his aunt, Mrs. Luo Shuqing, who had to come and look after him every day. That's all for today. He Yuan nodded to Luo Nan and prepared to leave. Luo Nan hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth. Sister He. Ha! He Yuan stood under the last ray of light from the setting sun. Her face was not too clear, but her usual ramrod straight heroic posture became more and more prominent. Luo Nan suddenly discovered that he was actually unable to imagine He Yuan's appearance outside of an official setting. But the words had already been spoken and it was hard to take them back. He could only brace himself and continue speaking. Sister He, it just so happens that my aunt and Shuelei are both here. How about we go out for a meal? These weren't polite words. Luo Nan had been mulling over this entire time. He wanted to develop a personal relationship with He Yuan. Of course he didn't mean it that way. He just wanted to become more familiar with her. It didn't matter if it was the society's arrangement or He Yuan's own judgment. She was a former Special Forces officer with an extraordinary family background. She was even more outstanding than He Yuan. She had always assumed the posture of a secretary in front of Luo Nan, serving him. This was absolutely not a normal situation. No matter how happy Luo Nan's mood was, the rational part of him needed to be vigilant at all times. Don't get carried away. It was precisely because of this feeling of unease in his heart that Luo Nan tried to understand He Yuan a bit more. At the very least, could they be friends? There will be a chance in the future. He Yuan gave a polite response that could be expected. Her face was calm and peaceful from beginning to end. It was impossible to tell whether she was happy or angry. She walked out of the ward under Luo Nan's attentive gaze. She just so happened to bump face to face with Luo Shuqing and Shuelei. Shuelei, who had been cautiously conversing with Luo Shuqing, immediately jumped in fright. He had a deep impression of this woman who killed in 10 steps. After the incident at Frost River Reality, he had specifically asked the gym master about her. The gym master's attitude was very strange. Though he didn't really understand, he felt a sense of reverence in his heart. He instinctively bowed. Secretary He. He didn't know how to address her properly. He saw Zhang Yingying and the others address her as such, so he blurted it out. He Yuan didn't mind. She gave a slight nod and bowed towards Luo Shuqing. Ms. Luo. Luo Shuqing and He Yuan had met a few times during this week. Luo Shuqing only knew that He Yuan was a government employee of the police department. She was in charge of the investigation and evidence collection work at Frost River Reality. Luo Shuqing immediately greeted her with a smile. There was a bit of distance amidst the politeness. After all, no one wanted their child to be questioned so many times. It was as if the victim had turned into a suspect. Chapter 263. Shuelei enjoyed VIP treatment on Luo Nan's side. The host was Mrs. Luo Shuqing. Last time at the Limestone Water Village pub, Luo Shuqing brought Shuelei home. She had a good impression of this tall and strong boy with a gentle temperament. However, what caused his status to soar was the incident at Frost River Reality. That night, Luo Nan stayed in the conflict zone. He was practically the last to be evacuated, and he was hospitalized in a coma. there was no way to hide this matter. When Mrs. Luo Shuqing heard of this, she was furious. From Mo Chiu to Mo Ping, anyone related to that night's gathering was given a torrent of abuse by her. Luo Nan was so scared that he had to pretend to be unconscious for a while. How to explain what happened that night became a big problem. In the end, Zhang Yingying came up with a plan. She used the Shui father and son to divert attention. She said that Luo Nan was frightened and that Shui Weiluan and Shui Lei worked together to save him. The father and son both received favors from Luo Nan. They were also half-insiders, so it was easy for them to make statements. Under the skillful hands of the copywriter, the reason was woven seamlessly. Luo Nan was given the image of an enthusiastic citizen who assisted the police, erasing the crime of leaving the group that night. Because of this, Mo Haihang and Luo Shuqing invited Shui Lei and his family to dinner. It was quite a coincidence. Shui Weiluan was the backbone of the special forces, and Mo Haihang was the technical expert of the SCA. They had cooperated twice in the field of crimes involving social authority. They were not strangers. The two families got along well, and the relationship between the two families rapidly warmed. However, Shui Lei was quite tired. When Luo Shuqing was around, it was hard to avoid the topic of that night. Shui Lei was afraid that he would slip up and waste all his previous efforts. In the end, he would stick his head together with Luo Nan, grunting and grunting. No one knew what they were saying. Luo Nan looked at Shui Lei's embarrassed appearance and laughed until he coughed. He could not stop coughing. Even the acupressure technique that Mr. Bai taught him was not very effective. This scene was normal for Luo Nan, but Luo Shuqing could not help but feel anxious when she saw it. It's been half a month. Why isn't he better? When will Dr. Cly get here? She stood up as she spoke, wanting to massage Luo Nan's back to ease his breathing. Shui Lei rushed to take the lead. Aunt Qing, let me. Let me. His large hand pressed onto Luo Nan's back, slowly using force to rub it. Luo Nan hissed. It wasn't pain, but a marvelous heat seeped into his back. It dispersed into his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. It was as if clouds were rising, filling his throat. It was like the nourishment of warm water. Luo Nan's coughing improved greatly for a time. At this moment, Luo Shuqing could not sit still. It looked like Shui Lei had been disgusted by the fish restaurant during this period of time. Divine you, divine fish. It was indeed quite easy to forget. Luo Nan just acted as if he didn't know. He laughed. I made the connection from that cauldron. You collected the metal of the 9 shepherds and cast the 9 cauldrons. They all tasted and cooked gods, ghosts, and gods. The ancient people constructed heaven and earth, society, and the overlapping format of the self. It still has a certain meaning to this day. These words were written in his grandfather's notebook. He had a deep impression of it. He casually read it out. It's just that the simple format of the ancient times is difficult to use today. Format. Overlapping. What kind of position was this? Shui Lei didn't quite understand what Luo Nan was saying. He felt more and more that this new friend of his was quite different from a normal person's train of thought. It was precisely because of this train of thought that Luo Nan was always targeted and doubted. However, the facts proved that those baffling ideas were useful, and very useful. That night, he was by Luo Nan's side. He watched as this friend of his was doubted, conflicted, and turned in a series of twists and turns. It was a roller coaster ride, and Luo Nan's previous impression of Luo Nan was completely washed away. But the feeling of congeniality didn't decrease. Instead, it continued to increase. Speaking of which, the gym master always spoke half-intelligible words all day long. With this kind of temperament, Luo Nan and the gym master would probably have a lot to talk about. The two of them should get along even more. Shuai looked at Luo Nan once more with this thought, and his eyes lit up. He immediately did his utmost to promote Luo Nan. Our gym master's surname is Xiao. His name is the word Daoguan. He founded the Daoguan single-handedly. His reputation has always been excellent. If it weren't for the fact that the gym master likes to be quiet and doesn't do much management, the Daoguan would have become famous long ago. Xiao Xinyu. This name sounded quite like a classical wuxia. It complemented the identity of the gym master of the Daoguan. Chapter 264. Luo Nan could feel that his aunt was already a bit frightened after being hospitalized for 2 weeks. Her care for him would certainly increase to a higher level. Unfortunately, he had joined the society and caused a lot of trouble. He also had to deal with his upcoming study plan. He needed a lot of free time. Being locked up at home like a prisoner bird was absolutely out of the question. Then there needed to be a reasonable reason. Shuai's proposal was excellent. Divine Yu Gym was in the River Wu district. Training in martial arts would certainly take time. He might even need to attend morning classes. If he could make this happen, no matter how much his aunt worried about him, she wouldn't let him make a round trip to and fro every day. Wouldn't that apartment in Blue Bay come in handy? Of course, he needed the help of other people to accomplish this. Just Shuai alone might not be able to do it. Who should he ask for help? Actually, Luo Nan didn't have a choice. He lowered his head to touch his wristband and found Bai Xinyan's contact information. He was about to make the call when he suddenly remembered that his aunt had already paid a visit. Wouldn't it be awkward if he made a phone call to get a confession? Luo Nan's mind stirred. He excused himself to go to the restroom and walked a few steps. The Star River scene was already reflected in his mind. Luo Nan intentionally controlled the range of his mental senses. The physical radius of his mental senses only covered a few nearby floors, but it was still several hundred life sketches stitched together. The interlacing starlight of the nebula revealed information on many levels. All Luo Nan needed to do was to extract the parts he was interested in, increase the precision of his senses, and perform clairvoyance. This sort of godlike perspective gave people an incomparable feeling. However, before Luo Nan could lock onto Bai Xinyan, he discovered another person. Strange. He Yuan actually didn't leave. He Yuan walked inside the building of Renai Hospital. She was heading in the direction of Bai Xinyan's temporary office. Bai Xinyan was a doctor of medicine from Clay's laboratory, a world-class expert in nerve repair. Although Renai Hospital only had Luo Nan as a patient, she received very high treatment. She had a large office that was like a luxurious suite. She could take a nap here during the night. There was nothing to nitpick about other than the fact that it was a bit far from Luo Nan's ward. He Yuan didn't greet her. She just pushed open the door and entered. Inside the room, Bai Xinyan had already taken off her white lab coat. She was wearing a snow-white, high-collared cashmere sweater. The inflating effect of the color didn't make her look bloated. Instead, it accentuated her slender figure, revealing her curves. It was a sight to behold. Right now, there was a rather handsome male doctor who refused to stay in the name of an academic exchange. Even if he had nothing to say, he had to find something to say. He just wanted to stay until it was time to get off work so that he could treat this cool and hot female doctor to dinner. Bai Xinyan, on the other hand, was quite patient. She picked up a cup of coffee and chatted with him with a smile. She was not impatient at all. He Yuan directly pushed open the door and entered, startling the already infatuated male doctor. He was about to lose his temper, but when he turned his head, he saw a pair of cold and clear eyes. He felt an inexplicable chill in his heart and instinctively became timid. "Professor Bai, your friend." Bai Xinyan smiled and nodded. At the same time, she raised the cup in her hand. Her meaning was clear. The male doctor had wanted to introduce himself and get to know another beautiful woman, but when he saw this, he couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. He didn't have the courage to do so, so he shrunk his head and left. Bai Xingyan sipped a mouthful of hot coffee. She had no intention of politely entertaining him. In any case, she would just be asking for a snub. He Yuan directly walked forward and stood face to face with Bai Xingyan. In terms of height, she was a bit shorter than Bai Xingyan. However, her cold and serious aura made her seem a bit more powerful. Across the ocean, I didn't invite you over from Woyang City to do some kind of happy therapy. Bai Xingyan had a free and easy demeanor. She moved her cup away and said innocently, "Do you want me to drill your boss until he cries every day? Is that what you want?" "Wait, Salt, I understand you. You've once told me yourself that as long as it's a pleasure therapy, it's only for the dead. In Luoyang City, you treated me like this." Bai Xingyan couldn't help but laugh. She reached out to touch He Yuan's cheek. "But you're alive and well, and you're so beautiful." He Yuan waved away Bai Xingyan's extended hand. Her expression was tranquil. "You know my condition better than I do." "All right, Miss TX. Oh, a nun is a bit more intimate. What I want to tell you is that doctors have the right to make plans, but any plan must be built on the foundation of the patient's own situation. Whether it's happy therapy or active intervention, there will always be a plan based on the condition of the patient. This is objective reality and nothing else." Bai Xingyan swirled her coffee cup, letting the black liquid sway along the edge of the cup. Not even a speck of it spilled out. "From what I've observed, your boss is currently paired with a happy therapy. This is the best choice. As for whether or not variables will appear in the time to come, I'm looking forward to it. Are you satisfied with this answer? It's already at the level of an incurable disease." Luo Nan could clearly sense the confrontation between the two beauties from beginning to end. But he wasn't like the cliché TV dramas, where the heavens fell and the earth cracked, where life was no longer interesting. Luo Nan just shrugged his shoulders in the bathroom. He sighed with emotion. It seemed that the external neuron had done something again. This marvelous little thing could bear the heavy pressure of soul strength, and it could achieve perfect self-concealment. It had evaded the probing of Ouyang Qin, Bai Xingyan, and the others one after another, resulting in misjudgments. It made him seem overly naive and optimistic. Actually, it wasn't that Luo Nan didn't know the severity of the situation. On the contrary, his judgment of the degree of imbalance between body and soul was more pessimistic than anyone else. It was just that he was able to hold on by relying on the marvelous usage of the external neuron. Bai Xingyan's judgment didn't scare him. Instead, He Yuan's concern hidden beneath her calm attitude moved him quite a bit. Luo Nan sensed that his aunt was about to arrive at Bai Xingyan's office at this time. He couldn't delay any longer. He hurriedly gave Bai Xingyan a call. Bai Xingyan, who was in confrontation, was slightly startled. She laughed and flashed her wristband at He Yuan. She immediately connected the call. "Student Luo Nan, are you feeling unwell anywhere?" Dr. Bai, there's something I want to ask you." "What is it?" "It's the tolerance of my body right now. Are you peeping? The range of your mental senses should be able to cover this area. If you keep going around and around like this, I can only assume that you have a guilty conscience." Bai Xingyan's gaze circled around the air. It was as if she could really see through Luo Nan. Luo Nan knew that he hadn't been discovered, but he still jumped in fright. In the end, he didn't cut off his clairvoyance. He mentally prepared himself and treated this as some sort of special videophone. He took a deep breath and spoke. "I want to ask Dr. Bai to give me a permit for normal physical training." "Oh, I just said that you can't increase your strength." "No, I just want to learn breathing techniques to relieve coughs." This concept probably exceeded Bai Xingyan's expectations. She clearly muttered to herself for a moment before saying, "Where to?" "The gym." No. Leicester recommended it. "It's the gym he cultivates in Leicester. Schwelle." Xinyan muttered to herself once more after confirming the reason. He Yue nodded at her at this time, indicating that she agreed. Luo Nan saw it, and Xinyan certainly saw it as well. However, she didn't follow He Yuan's script. Instead, she revealed a mysterious smile. "What's the name of the gym?" "Divine Yu. Divine Yu Gym." Even the interior of the building, which had a constant temperature all year round, seemed to have dropped to the freezing point. He Yuan knew that this person wouldn't let her off so easily. Xinyan immediately raised her hands in surrender. "Stop glaring at me, my dear. I'm not trying to pry into your privacy. Your source of information. Hey, this is an open secret, okay? Open. Everything related to Luo Nan, the Luo family, and formatting theory." Xinyan was speechless for a moment. This old friend of hers had obviously chosen the wrong line on purpose. Moreover, it seemed like she really did not care about her own private affairs at all. She pointed directly to the more sensitive areas without any disguise. He Yuan was overbearing. "To a certain extent, your instructor's laboratory works for Quantum Corporation. It involves the theory of the modification and evolution of the nervous system, and it has the same origin as the archetype format. The formatting theory of the Luo family should have been the goal you all strive to obtain. But why have you never had any thoughts of obtaining it all these years? Or perhaps you originally coveted it, but you discovered a flaw that was difficult to overcome, just like what Mr. Luo is displaying right now. Are you flaunting your reasoning ability?" Xinyan shook her windbreaker and covered her collar. She wanted to shield herself from the cold air that assaulted her face, but she couldn't help but sigh. "Or are you saying that you think that it would be better for him, and for the current situation in Xia City, if we let that little voyeur, reserve duty kid overturn everything here?" He Yuan stared at Xinyan. A moment later, she walked expressionlessly toward the sports car that Xinyan had just purchased a few days ago. She directly opened the door and sat inside. Xinyan shrugged her shoulders. She got in the car and started it up. Then she did a beautiful drift in the narrow space and sped toward the exit. Soon, she merged into the city's surging traffic. After leaving Renai Hospital several kilometers away, He Yuan spoke once more. "Give me the relevant information." "Everything. I don't have it." Xinyan's reply was straightforward and to the point. The research related to formatting theory ended very quickly. The conclusion the higher-ups came to was that there was no value in continuing the research. "I can tell you the reason. After over 1,000 repeated experiments, it was determined that no one could withstand the rapid expansion of soul strength. It seems that you only have a smattering of knowledge regarding formatting theory. Then can I give you an introduction? Do you need it?" He Yuan's eyelids drooped slightly. She didn't say a word. "Then don't blame me for talking too much." Xinyan set the sports car to autopilot mode. She hugged the back of her head with both hands and adopted a lazy posture. According to Quantum Corporation's research, the formatting theory you speak of is confirmed to be a completely uncontrollable method of soul strength growth. The source is Luo Yuandao, who is also your boss grandfather. He obtained a sort of a revelation in the wilderness. It was like the gods of various secret orders. Although it was marvelous, it wasn't unique in that era. However, it was different from those so-called gods who babbled on and on. Over the next few decades, that old man always wanted to use his own method to reinterpret this power, and he achieved a series of results. There were two main paths involved. One was closer to the revelation itself. It emphasized the difference between individuals, and it was formatting theory. The other was the path of fundamentalism that became narrower and narrower. Compromises were made, incorporating modern technological capabilities, reducing individual characteristics, and searching for the greatest common divisor. This was the theory of the archetype format. Yuan listened quietly, not saying a word. You're very clear about the results. Formatting theory and the archetype format. Let's not talk about which is more impressive. In practical applications, formatting theory is without a doubt a crushing defeat. Of all the practitioners and experimental subjects who accepted this theory, the vast majority of them died. They all died from the uncontrolled growth of their soul strength. His grandfather, Luo Yuandao, is now a madman. His father, Luo Zhongheng, he's dead now. This person worked with Yan Hong for a period of time. According to what Yan Hong said, that person was simply a barrel of gunpowder that could explode at any time. That's not a description. It's the kind in the real sense. That's why not even his bones were left. Bai Xinyan was still supporting the back of her head, but her eyes were looking towards He Yuan to see her reaction. He Yuan also looked over. What's the conclusion? Isn't it just like that? Bai Xinyan's bright eyes blinked innocently. Chapter 266. In the eyes of capitalists, everything in the world could be squeezed out of profit. Even though Luo Nan appeared inexperienced and clumsy during the operation at Frost River Reality, even a fool could see the superplasticity of his abilities. For a large financial group like Quantum Corporation, even if they did not make a long-term investment, they could take out a few similar tools with short-term explosive power. These tools would be able to display unimaginable effects at critical moments. Unfortunately, Quantum Corporation had never paid any attention to Luo Nan. If not for Yan Yongbu's arrival, if not for Zhang Yingying's discerning eyes, Luo Nan would have been forever buried in the boundless sea of people until he turned into a barrel of gunpowder, exploding with a bang. He Yuan absolutely did not believe that there was nothing fishy going on here. Then, in the end, what made Quantum Corporation give up on excavating this wealth? Bai Xinyan removed her hands from behind her head and stretched her waist. I'm just a researcher in a laboratory. What deep information could I possibly know? This is all I know. It's up to you to believe it or not. She displayed this attitude because she was certain that He Yuan could not do anything to her right now. The transmission and exchange of information depended on her mood. She was willing to say this because she wanted to see He Yuan's reaction. It would be a pleasant surprise if juice could be squeezed out from a sugarcane that had already been squeezed once. He Yuan did not force her any further. She just sank into deep thought. The only thing that could make such an insatiable and greedy capital stop was either a terrifying and irresistible threat, or an incomparably enormous profit that could be enticed and harvested, or both. Following this direction, He Yuan rearranged the information related to Quantum Corporation and formatting theory over the past few years. She tried to find clues, but it was hard to obtain an answer in a short amount of time. At this time, Bai Xinyan stared at her with a beaming smile. I've spent so much time talking to you. Shouldn't you answer my question? He Yuan did not even raise her eyelids. She completely ignored her, but she did not directly refuse. Seeing this, Bai Xinyan bluntly said, although Ouyang Chen stole the limelight in the matter of Frost River Reality, I feel that what's more interesting is the deep involvement of the government and the military. Ability users are controlled in the cage of the logic world. The all-encompassing social consciousness, the unified political structure, the balanced intervention of the inner and outer worlds, and even the final fusion. It seems that this is the embodiment of someone's authoritarian governance theory. This series of questions actually pushed Luo Nan's ward a step further with regards to the question of whether or not He Yuan's father would participate in the election. Chapter 267. The operation interface of the external neuron opened before Luo Nan's eyes. There were no other changes except for the icon of the visualization diagram. The gray and long download and install status showed some obvious changes. There was an additional ray of light above it, forming a long and narrow fan-shaped region of light. The ratio was about 1/10. It was much clearer than before. Luo Nan could sense that the specific ratio was a very mysterious number. This phenomenon appeared after the incident at Frost River Reality. The analysis progress was 7% before. It had jumped by nearly 3% overnight. The progress was quite fast. But what the hell was 2 decimal places? Luo Nan suspected that if he sought a higher precision, it would go all the way down to 9. There was a plateau in the progress of analysis. There was a level restriction. This was an unprecedented situation. Luo Nan had to seriously ponder over it. From Luo Nan's perspective, the application icon on the operation interface was a mapping of the external neuron's analytical control ability to a certain target. This point was fully reflected in Gear and the human-faced arachnid. The current visualization diagram icon appeared from analyzing and controlling the human-faced arachnid. But as Luo Nan's understanding deepened, especially from the new understanding he gained that night at Frost River Reality, he realized that the essence of the human-faced arachnid was chaos and chaos. What was there to analyze? He would not be able to obtain any answers even if he wanted to analyze it. What could truly be analyzed, and what possessed the value of analysis, was the order frame that formed the outstanding instinct of the essence of chaos. So Luo Nan saw that the image of the human-faced arachnid did not appear on the operation interface. Instead, it was a visualization diagram, a combination of a tetrahedron, an inscribed sphere, and an outer-scribed sphere. All right. Why was it this? Every time Luo Nan thought of this question, his heart would thump loudly. This thump lasted for an entire week. The corresponding relationship between the human-faced arachnid and the order frame complemented the crucial logical link of the operation interface's display and analysis target misalignment. Next, he just needed to use the simplest of reasoning to arrive at an inference. Among them, the visualization diagram overlapped with the order frame to a large extent. Could the overlap of the two be reflected in a practical sense? Every time a corresponding thought surfaced, the resonant resonance of the heavily chained crow in the depths of the boundless mental plane from that night in the logic world seemed to reappear in his ears. Between the various phenomena, between each detail, there seemed to be a thread that connected vaguely. Some were bright, some were dark, some were hidden, and some were visible. All the way until it formed a closed loop that caused Luo Nan's heartstrings to tremble. Unfortunately, there were quite a few details that were blurry and unclear. Luo Nan's understanding of the order frame, the visualization diagram, and the human-faced arachnid didn't bring about any breakthrough progress. The analysis progress was still at the weird value of 99%, and the rapid expansion of his soul power was still reaching the limit of the void depository. The imbalance of his body and soul was still worsening. However, Luo Nan had gained something in the end. First of all, he received a bright future. If the overlap between the visualization diagram and the order frame was a reality, then the path ahead of him would be unimaginably deep and vast. It represented the astonishing breadth and depth of formatting theory. Secondly, on a more substantial level, the originally illusory order framework and mysterious and incomprehensible visualization diagrams now had a substantial carrier, the external neuron. This marvelous creation was crowned with the name of the dynamo core. It gave the order frame a precise numerical classification down to 2 decimal places. The creator of the external neuron undoubtedly had a deep and thorough understanding of the corresponding elements. The external neuron was able to successfully seal the order frame and analytical design within it, forming a grand work of art. The existence of this work of art was a cognitive platform for the order frame. It materialized a large amount of untouchable and incomprehensible elements. Although Luo Nan's current understanding of the external neuron was extremely shallow, this toy itself possessed rich interfaces and universality. It was able to seamlessly connect to the human nervous system, artificial intelligence systems, and even the format pyramid social format. This provided Luo Nan with a large number of entry points. For example, right now Luo Nan was extremely interested in the function of the void depository. This function had great value in terms of control over soul power. It possessed an urgent and substantial significance. Luo Nan had to admit that if he didn't have the external neuron, he probably wouldn't even need to use Bai Xinyan's happiness therapy. He would have been a huge tragedy. Formatting theory was good in every way, but how in the world did it grow out of control? When his grandfather first created and researched this theory, how did he evade and resolve it in the end? Luo Nan recalled the records in his grandfather's notebook. In the end, he could only unwillingly admit that the answer probably didn't exist in the early research results. It looked like the search for the other notebooks had to be put on the agenda. Luo Nan thought of contacting Bro Octopus, who was researching the formulas in his grandfather's notebook. He could also ask him about his grandfather's physical and mental state recently. Oh. Luo Nan's thoughts suddenly froze when he found Bro Octopus's profile picture in his contact list. Mental state. A link that he had intentionally or unintentionally overlooked suddenly jumped into Luo Nan's train of thought. At this moment, a demonic voice floated back and forth within his heart. A schizophrenic lunatic, what was it made of? Was it because his research results were stolen? Was it because his father and son were betrayed? This had always been the reason Luo Nan believed in. But what if he looked at it from a different angle? From a perspective that he couldn't have imagined before, but right now, it was truly placed before his eyes? How could a creator not be a practitioner? How could the results of formatting theory not be used on his own body? Then if, and only if, this theory was ultimately unable to resolve the problem of the uncontrollable growth of soul strength. It was unable to resolve the problem of the imbalance between body and soul. It was not a perfect theory. Luo Nan used an objective attitude to make a hypothesis. Then what would his grandfather's state be like? It must be known that there was a 99% chance that there was not a single external neuron in his grandfather's body. What would be the result? This thought made Luo Nan's back suddenly explode with a layer of cold sweat. And at this moment, Luo Nan recalled his grandfather's crazy words back at the medical center. With his current understanding, it seemed that there was an extremely marvelous sense of correspondence when he analyzed and interpreted it anew. When this angle of thought became clear, his thoughts were like a flood that had opened the floodgates. They rumbled and surged forward, unable to be restrained. His grandfather's situation was set aside for now, but there was still that person. That person who had delivered the external neuron into Luo Nan's hands in an inexplicable manner. That person who could not be bypassed, who could not be cut apart. His methods, his objectives, his considerations, what would they be like? Chapter 268. Fire. Fire. Let the flames burn. Burn through this cloak of darkness. Cloak. Darkness. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes. He still wasn't quite used to the light here. He felt that the wall lamp was like a flame on the verge of being extinguished. It swayed restlessly under the cover of the darkness cloak. It was precisely the darkness cloak that pressed down on his body, isolating him from the outside world. It was like the sequela of a lack of oxygen. His entire body felt sluggish, unable to muster any energy. He understood that this feeling wasn't right. He put his feet down from the pedestal and his fingers tapped the ring-shaped chair on his body. The smart wall lamp's brightness began to increase, and warm rays of light sprinkled down. The unbalanced state of light and darkness twisted. The exquisite veins of the tree walls, the bookshelves, the wall decorations, and the shadows they cast. They formed a picture together with the extended staircase. This caused this narrow space of less than 3 square meters to stretch out and possess a marvelous sense of layering. Luo Nan felt much better. Right now he was in the treehouse of Withered Tree Sandbar. This was the private area that his parents had single-handedly built. This was the first time he had come to school after 2 weeks. The design of the day shift curriculum, the narrow social circle, and of course, the sick leave that Xie Junping had arranged for him. It was destined that the vast majority of people wouldn't know that such a student had quietly disappeared and quietly returned. After the end of the day's classes, Luo Nan arrived at Gear as the only official member of the ritual club. He arrived at the treehouse that was still unknown to everyone and quietly rested. Time had washed away his mother's aura in this place, but there were countless minute traces that manifested her past existence. Luo Nan had deliberately searched for her at first, but he felt that there was no need to do so after a moment. He just sat in the resting room on the lower level, leaning against the slightly bumpy decorations on the tree wall. He stared blankly. Countless things tangled in his mind, but none of them had any meaning. This continued until he fell into a deep sleep, when he was roused awake by the crazy ramblings of his grandfather in his memories. He had been tormented by those crazy ramblings for the past 2 days. He always wanted to analyze a hidden line of logic from them, but this kind of whimsical thinking was destined to hurt his nose. Even his brain was a bit numb. He looked at his wristband. Nearly 2 hours had passed in his days. It was also at this moment that the sound of a ladder was heard. It was a convenient tool that had just been installed at the end of the underwater corridor. It was used to enter and exit normally, and it was one of the results of Xie Junping's work over the past half a month. He yearned for the Daoguan that Shuelei spoke of, which had an amazing teacher. The sky was already dark by the time they emerged from the dense forest on the north bank. Xie Junping was still driving the electric sightseeing car, speeding through the campus with Luo Nan. There were very few people on campus at this time. Most people had already returned home. Xie Junping increased the speed of the sightseeing car to the highest speed allowed. At the same time, he spoke eloquently about the battle between him and the brown-skinned mouse. Luo Nan suddenly spoke without any warning as he controlled the submarine to pursue the mouse. Slow down. Xie Junping instinctively hit the brakes when they arrived at an intersection. Thanks to this, a dark green heavy container that was incompatible with the atmosphere of the campus rumbled past on another road. The sealed container brushed past the front of the sightseeing car, bringing with it a strong gust of wind that blew the fallen leaves and caused the windshield to ring. F***ck me. Xie Junping had always been the one putting on airs on campus. When had he ever seen someone act unreasonably in front of him? Plus, what the hell was this heavy container? Acumen College implemented a strict system that prohibited external vehicles from entering. Even if there were all sorts of second-generation and government officials on campus, they would at most use a sightseeing car as a means of transportation. There were also special passageways for construction and transport vehicles. How could they just barge through the campus? The heavy container didn't stop. It sped all the way and soon entered a special underground passageway. But the situation just now was certainly a serious violation of the rules. As a candidate for vice president of the student council and a high-ranking member of the honor society, Xie Junping laughed mischievously. He called the campus security office as if it was a matter of course. He sent over the license plate, model number, and the image captured by the photon film. I guarantee that it won't leave the school gates. Xie Junping winked at Luo Nan. Of course, this little matter didn't count as anything. Soon, he and Luo Nan forgot about this matter. They rode the sightseeing car to the parking lot and switched to the phantom flying car. They sped all the way to the magnetic track and locked onto the coordinates of the River Wu district. They hadn't run far when a call came in. Xie Junping swept a glance and used the car phone to connect. He chuckled and said, "Old Du, what's up? You're free from worry." Chapter 269. What the hell? Xie Junping was baffled. "Old Du, you must have taken too many drugs. Take your sister. What did I do to piss you off? Why did you detain my car for no reason?" Old Du's voice was far too sharp. He was clearly furious, but this voice made him sound like a shrew cursing in the street. Xie Junping could not help but laugh when he heard this. He understood. "So that box of goods is yours. You're in the car. I'll run you over in the car." Xie Junping did not mind. He slapped the steering wheel and laughed. "Old Du, I'm not trying to criticize you. Even if it's easy to get a driver's license, don't let an idiot take it. He's reckless. One mistake and the casualty rate will skyrocket. Your old man at the traffic office will get angry with you." Xia. Okay. Don't worry. I'll give the security office a call and have you drive the car away. But that idiot driver will have to serve me tea and apologize. You're nothing. The trembling voice of the sharp voice could be heard clearly from the car phone. "It's your turn to sell your ass. My car has already been towed back. If anything happens to the materials inside, Xia, I won't let you off." The other side hung up the phone after speaking. What the hell? Xie Junping had a baffled expression. He turned to look at Luo Nan and explained, "This old Du Yong, we also call him Sissy. You should know him. He's the president of the Mystic Arts Research Society. He's usually a decent person, but he's a bit fanatical about the mystic arts. Plus, he takes too many drugs. Sometimes his brain isn't normal." Luo Nan was careless and got shot in the face. He was speechless. Xie Junping really did not understand the reason for Du Yong's anger. He muttered to himself, "He's already been towed back. What the hell is he angry about?" Another call came in at this time. Luo Nan recognized the caller this time. It was Xie Junping's best friend, Hu Huaying, who served in the student council. "Brother Ping, where are you?" "I'm outside with Nanster. We have some business in the River Wu district." "Ha! Nanster is here too." That night at Frost River Reality, this brother just happened to be there. He was knocked out by Huang Bingzhen's holy swap. Even though he had been unconscious at the time, he had woken up later on and asked around about the situation. He had roughly figured out what had happened. No matter what was said, Luo Nan was the one who led the special forces all the way to the room they were in and transported them out. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Luo Nan had saved their lives. Naturally, Hu Huaying looked at Luo Nan in a different light. Luo Nan also greeted Hu Huaying, "Brother Hu." Hu Huaying quickly cut to the chase. "I heard that you just helped the Mystic Arts Research Society seize old Du's car." Xie Junping was confused by the logic behind it. "What do you mean? What do you mean by, help, the Mystic Arts Research Society? You don't know." Not only did old Du resign as president, but he also left the club. Before he left, he packed all the equipment and materials he had left in the club into his car. In the end, he was detained by the security office. The people from the club chased after him, but they were taken back untouched. F***CK. Xie Junping was shocked by the twists and turns in the story. Something like this had actually happened. This was no longer a matter of the former president resigning from the club. This was a matter of a complete change in the world. It was a matter of shedding all pretenses of cordiality. Just how chaotic was the Mystic Arts Research Society right now? Xie Junping shot a glance at Luo Nan. He could not help but think of the problem of the ownership of gear. It would be strange if this sort of mystic arts research society could wrestle with the construction society. What about the financial backers behind them? They just watched helplessly as the club tore at each other. Oh, right. You said that a big financial backer withdrew his investment, right? Luo Nan's eyelids drooped. Xie Junping had already told him about this matter. But his understanding was different from Xie Junping and Hu Huaying's. Luo Nan knew that this matter involved the current situation in Xia City, especially the order of justice. Old Du really is a failure as a person. Xie Junping sighed at the Mystic Arts Research Society's lack of effort. He had quite a headache for a time. Luo Nan really couldn't just turn around and leave after today's matter. Not to mention the fact that his withdrawal of investment had aggravated the situation, there was also the matter of how the bidding between the Mystic Arts Research Society and the Construction Society would end. How would gear belong to them? All of these were troublesome. He slapped the steering wheel. Fine. I'll go back and take a look. Luo Nan nodded. It's good to go back first. Don't. You've already made an appointment with someone. This is the first time we've met. You might have to call him master in the future. You need to leave a good impression. Don't ever be late. As he spoke, Xie Junping controlled the flying car to stop at the edge of the safety island. It's not far from the school. I'll have old Hu come pick me up. You drive the Phantom over. You have the authority anyway. We won't delay each other. I'll let you know if there's anything later. Luo Nan looked at the time and didn't refuse. The Phantom flying car quickly drove away. Luo Nan sat in the front passenger seat without moving, allowing the flying car to move forward in automatic mode. Luo Nan was pondering over the matter of the Mystic Arts Research Society. According to the information the society had recently grasped, the Order of Justice was one of the biggest financial backers of the Mystic Arts Research Society. And it wasn't just Acumen College. Aside from the Crow, Inc., who had entered first, there was one more person. Chapter 270. Within the format pyramid, Baze's projected image seemed to be filled with a layer of clouds and dust, but there was the glimmer of starlight within. Luo Nan's mind shifted over and saw the starlight flow like a river. It rippled within the format pyramid, and there were layers of dark surging waves that pushed Baze's image up and down. It was an extraordinary scene. However, the current situation could not be supported purely by aesthetics. The uncontrollable growth of soul strength and the capacity of the hollow depository broke through the limit. This caused the interference between the mental and material planes to continue to increase, and the interference to the format pyramid grew stronger and stronger. Luo Nan was a bit worried. The layout of the format pyramid and the ranks of his believers would undergo a huge change when he woke up. Fortunately, this situation had not occurred yet. His mind swept over Baze's image, triggering a certain key. A long black shadow pierced through the clear waves of starlight. It was the materialization of the order frame, the dark chains. This marvelous chain was like a flood dragon. It bobbed up and down in the endless river of stars, appearing and disappearing from time to time. Right now, it was circling around the periphery of Baze's image. It made a slight sound, and the meaning behind it was probably a guide for Baze's order. That night at Frost River Reality, Wang had tried to control the demon, but he had not succeeded. The uncontrollable chaos element transmitted through internal channels and corroded life. This was the most important reason why the elites of the order were wiped clean. Baze had been attacked back then. He had nearly exploded and died. In his despair, he had sought out Fairchild, hoping to obtain a dignified death. After Fairchild had restrained Baze, he had asked Luo Nan to use his order frame to help Baze comb out a new path of life. Luo Nan had indeed succeeded. Although Bei's life essence had been completely corroded and replaced by the chaos element, Luo Nan had established a brand new binding order upon this chaos. Bei's relied on this to live in this world. But because of this, Bei's life was in Luo Nan's hands. Of course, Luo Nan had been asked by Fairchild to save Bei. He did not want to do anything to Bei. Luo Nan did not think that a strong person like Bei would be able to control him if he were to harden his heart and seek death. After that night, Luo Nan did not attempt to do anything to Bei. He was admitted to the hospital for treatment, distressed by the increased loss of control over his soul strength. Fairchild was summoned back by the upper echelons of the Order of Justice for questioning and investigation. The two sides did not contact each other. Many times, Luo Nan simply forgot about this matter. The unforeseen event of the Mystic Arts Research Society made Luo Nan's train of thought circle around. He was thinking, should I get in touch with this person? Luo Nan hesitated for a moment, but he didn't make his next move. Aside from the Wraith sign and ink, Luo Nan had not used this channel to contact or control anyone. It was one thing to treat a Darksider species that lacked intelligence and his own pets. But it was another thing to treat Xie Junping, Cat Eyes, and Bei, a highly intelligent life form. He didn't know what the Order framework could do. Moreover, contacting Bei because of the Mystic Arts Research Society was a little funny. After all, in the eyes of a powerhouse like Bei, the level of a school society was too low. Luo Nan shook his head, and his mind left. As the saying goes, cultivation knows no sun or moon. To a large extent, it referred to the complete loss of one's grasp of time in the outside world when one was in a state of meditation. Luo Nan felt that he had walked a full circle in the format pyramid interface. In reality, nearly half an hour had already passed. The Phantom flew all the way in autopilot mode and entered the River Wu district. The car's AI had long since entered Shuai Lei's reserved address and designed a route. Soon, it brought Luo Nan to the Bosshan building where the Divine Yu Gym was located. This was a large standalone high-rise building. It occupied an area of over 100 acres. Its name was Bosshan, and its design was an imitation of the ancient Bosshan furnace. It was a very famous landmark building in the River Wu district. Bosshan building was shaped like a mountain, wide at the bottom and sharp at the top. The lower level was a tidy office building, and the upper level was a business district with stacked heavy rocks. Various stores were scattered within, and there was an extremely brilliant green aerobic track that circled around the building and reached the Sky Garden at the very top. This should be one of the highest class business districts in the River Wu district. Gym Master Xiao must be quite wealthy to be able to open a store here and open a gym. Luo Nan parked the car in the underground parking lot and took the elevator to the high-level business district. He then contacted Shuai Lei and soon found the location of the Divine Yu Gym under Shuai Lei's guidance. If the Bosshan building was viewed as an artificial mountain, then the Divine Yu Gym should be located in the area halfway up the mountain. It did not take up a large amount of space. It was an open-style building with an ancient courtyard. The building was limited by the topography of the business district. The three courtyards were pushed up, occupying a corner of the building facing the sun. It was as if the building was built against the mountain. It was extremely elegant. Though it was located in the bustling business district, the front of the gym was quite simple. A simple signboard with the words, Divine Yu, hung on it. It was upright and proper. There was no money left behind, and it lacked any distinguishing features. Chapter 271. The sky had turned dark long ago. There were not many lit places in the Daguan. The front courtyard was a bit livelier. There were students and parents shuttling back and forth under the lights. There were very few people when they reached the middle courtyard. The corridor was lit, but it made the courtyard even darker. Shuai Lei led Luo Nan up the corridor on the left. They arrived at the back courtyard. It was pitch black here. No one could be seen at all. The lights of the corridor and the haze of the bustling city sprinkled down. Only then would they not be in total darkness. There aren't usually many people here, Shuai mentioned. He then pointed at the pitch-black wooden building in front of them. We're here. That's the mind study. The wooden building looked long and wide under the dusky light. It practically took up most of the back courtyard. This surprised Luo Nan a bit. He had always thought that the mind study was a study or something like that when he heard Shuai talk about it. He never expected it to be an extremely large room. It could already be used as a training ground. Luo Nan was even more certain when he walked into the mind study. This place should have been a training ground in the past. The floor beneath his feet was made of soft wood with excellent elasticity. It was very comfortable to walk on it after taking off his shoes. But it was certainly in use now. Quite a few items were placed inside. The layout was quite casual, and it looked a bit messy. There was a short table placed near the door. There were a few cushions and a tea set on top of it. There was a stove next to the short table. It was used to boil water and boil tea. It was clean and tidy. It really did look like someone was here often. Shuai turned on the lights. The lights only covered the area in front of the door. The layout inside was even more dusky and messy. The shadows were indistinct, and it looked a bit terrifying. Shuai was a bit embarrassed by this situation. The gym master usually lives here. This place is a bedroom, a study, a living room, and even a utility room. It's just that they aren't separated. Luo Nan was very baffled. Why? The gym master said that he's impatient and full of fire. He needs an open place to channel it. It's easy to get sick if he's stifled. Of course, we normal people can't do this. Shuai took out the tea set, kettle, and other things used to entertain guests as he spoke. He turned on the stove to boil water. Who knew that his wristband would vibrate the moment he put the water in? He slapped his forehead after receiving the message. Nanster, sit here for a bit. I still have to go help my senior. Sorry. Go to hell. Of course Luo Nan didn't mind. The relationship between the two could be said to have been through life and death. There was no need to be so courteous. Shuai, on the other hand, felt that he couldn't argue with them, so he put his palms together and bowed before hurrying over. It seemed that the dojo was indeed short of manpower. Luo Nan was a bit surprised. To be able to open a dojo in the Bosshan building, he should be worth hundreds of millions. Why didn't he hire a few more coaches? Or was it that business was too good for them to handle? Luo Nan recalled his impression of the Daoguan, but he felt that there weren't too many people in the Daoguan. There weren't many people staying in the back courtyard, and there weren't many people in the middle courtyard. It really wasn't lively. It was a little strange. He didn't think too much about it. Before the water boiled, he stood at the door and watched the wind. This sort of ancient building was rarely seen in the current Xia city. Though it was a bustling business district with an unending stream of people above and below him, the clamor of people was blocked outside the courtyard. It was truly a wonderful place to find peace amidst the hustle and bustle. Outside the mind study, 2 stone figurines lit up. The orange-red glow illuminated the entrance to the mind study, the corridor, and a small area of the courtyard. A gust of wind blew, and leaves rustled as they fluttered down. Only now did Luo Nan see that there was actually a large tree planted in the back courtyard. It was so thick that it would take 2 people to wrap their arms around it. Luo Nan was unable to make out its species for a time. He just felt the edge of the light reach out, and the shadow of the tree danced. It was quiet and secluded. The rustling sound of the wind cleansed one's heart and mind. It made one's mind clear, and one's mind was silently born. Luo Nan stood under the wooden corridor outside the mind study. He was dazed for a time, and the sound of boiling water behind him woke him up with a start. He walked back through the door and brewed a pot of tea for himself. He was young, after all. His thoughts were fickle. His faintly discernible thoughts quickly dissipated, and he sized up the furnishings within the room. This large room possessed many functions, and it made him quite curious. He immediately held the teacup, and his gaze swept over the various furnishings behind the dusky light. There were some places where the light couldn't reach, and he couldn't see them clearly. He naturally used his mental senses. The range of his clairvoyance was around 10 meters, and it covered the entire area behind the door. His exquisite perception didn't let even the smallest speck of dust escape. Because of this, Luo Nan discovered that this place was actually quite clean. It couldn't be said to be spotless. However, it was often cleaned, and there was a faint sense of order. It seemed that the arrangement of junk naturally separated a relatively independent area. It wasn't as messy and disorderly as Luo Nan's first impression of it. That's right. But Luo Nan was no stranger to this sort of image. His grandfather had been tormented by illness all these years, and it was the same. Could it be that this person's health is also not good? Gym Master Xiao was the first to kneel on the ground. Luo Nan knew that this was an ancient custom, so he learned to sit down. However, Gym Master Xiao only fiddled with the tea set, as if he wanted to brew tea for a guest. Luo Nan mulled over the wording in his mind, but unfortunately, this was far from his forte. He needed time to sort things out again, so he could only maintain his silence. The training ground was silent for a moment. The quieter it was, the more awkward it was. Luo Nan wanted to speak a few times, but he was unable to find an excuse. He could only find something to do and pay attention to Shuai through his mental senses. Shuai placed the metal ball back on the bowl tray and flipped a switch. The outer layer of the ball was disassembled, and a mechanical device was taken out from the central cavity. It was also spherical, with a diameter of 6 or 7 centimeters. It was only the size of a fist, and its outer layer was wrapped in a fine metal mesh. Its inner layer was a device similar to a gyroscope. He fiddled with it a few times, then scratched his head. Clearly, this toy was broken. Luo Nan dispelled his last bit of wishful thinking. This gave him the opportunity to speak. He lowered his head and apologized. "I'm sorry, Gym Master Xiao. I put that." He was halfway through his sentence, but he was unable to think of how to describe the metal bowl. He was stuck, and sweat appeared on his forehead. Gym Master Xiao was pouring water into a cup. He raised his head to glance at Luo Nan. "The Tai Chi ball." "Yes, the Tai Chi ball. That Tai Chi ball, I will definitely fix it." Cough. It seemed that Luo Nan was fated to not be able to speak a complete sentence today. The itch in his throat flared up, and he was unable to block it. He could only turn his head and cough twice. Gym Master Xiao didn't really care. It was broken to begin with. It's already strange that it was able to last this long. He pushed a cup of tea in front of Luo Nan as he spoke. The itch in Luo Nan's throat had yet to subside. He took the cup, but he didn't dare to drink it. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold it in and choke it out. This was probably a lack of manners. Luo Nan felt rather helpless. Gym Master Xiao ignored him. He picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp, minding his own business. Then he lowered his head and played with the cup in his hand. Luo Nan had just spoken a few words, and now he had to enter a state of silence again. Luo Nan really didn't know what to do for a time. Shuai saw that the situation was bad, so he didn't care about the Tai Chi ball anymore. He hurriedly put the mechanical device back into the cavity, walked over with hurried steps, and knelt to the side. Chapter 273. Luo Nan understood what he meant, but his train of thought was unable to turn back. He hesitated and did not answer. Gym Master Xiao gave clearer guidance. You are a student, and you have other matters to attend to. I can teach you, but do you have enough time to absorb and digest it? Luo Nan was speechless. He discovered that this was a very practical problem. His daily classes, the Society's general knowledge training, the daily consumption of Frost River reality, and his own research on formatting theory. Every single one of them took up a lot of time. Of course, he did not need to concoct drugs every day. His schedule was much more relaxed. It was not impossible to squeeze in a bit more time, but it was bound to be scattered and unbearable. How could he guarantee his learning results in this way? Luo Nan looked at Shui Lei. Shui Lei was stunned. Clearly, he had not considered these things. In the end, Gym Master Xiao proposed a more practical method. Make a schedule. Make a schedule for the entire day and show it to me. Ah, okay. Luo Nan had a ready-made schedule. It was the general knowledge training plan Yuan had drawn up for him last time. He just needed to delete the specific course names and take it out for use. Luo Nan wanted to transfer it to Gym Master Xiao, but he suddenly discovered that Gym Master Xiao did not have his wristband on. Shui Lei said hurriedly, just give it to me. The Gym Master isn't used to electronic products. Okay. Shui Lei took the information and connected it to the printer in the corner of the training field. He operated it. Luo Nan was a bit surprised. The wristband was not just a communication tool for modern citizens. It was an integrated pass that contained proof of identity, social privileges, assets, credit, and other contents. Luo Nan did not feel this when he wore the wristband, but once he lost it, he would immediately experience the feeling of being unable to move an inch. His uncle worked at the SCA. He had taught the children of his family a special social experience class. It left a deep impression on Luo Nan. Amidst the hum of paper being passed, Luo Nan was finally able to match Gym Master Xiao with the image of an old-school character he had preset. It seemed to make sense to use this as an explanation. Shui Lei handed over the printed form. Gym Master Xiao swept his gaze over it and said calmly, "Who made this?" Luo Nan was startled. Shui Lei laughed before he could respond. Could it be Secretary He? Oh, it's Sister He. Gym Master Xiao lightly shook the paper, causing it to shatter. Then, he placed the paper on the short table and placed the cup he had been playing with on top of it. Not bad, I finally have time to sleep. If you want to learn the breathing technique, you must ensure that you sleep no less than 6 hours every night. Learning to breathe begins with sleeping. Luo Nan was stunned. He instinctively looked at Shui Lei. Now that the lease is up, the rent for renewing the lease is astronomical. We don't have the savings. Gym Master isn't good at business. His days are quite bitter. The two had already walked to the entrance. Luo Nan turned his head. It was hard to imagine what it was like to be unable to earn money in such a bustling area. But when he saw the simple words, God You, on the Daoguan signboard and thought about Gym Master Xiao's temperament, Luo Nan felt that Shui Lei's words weren't strange. Back then, Xiaolin. Sigh. Xiaolin said that if the Gym Master sublet the Daoguan and switched to a smaller place, he would have been rich just from the rent alone. He wouldn't have ended up like this. Shui Lei was a bit unnatural when he mentioned his ex-girlfriend. Luo Nan laughed awkwardly. Frankly speaking, he never thought of subletting. Judging from Shui Lei's tone, it seemed the same. Everyone here didn't have any brains for economics. Luo Nan bid farewell to Shui Lei and didn't delay any longer. He rode the phantom flying car straight to Renai Hospital. Since he had to go to the Dawan, his treatment and study time were pushed back to the evening. Time was tight, and he needed to discuss matters concerning his schedule with Hiyuan. However, when Luo Nan arrived at the hospital and saw Bai Xinyan, Hiyuan was nowhere to be seen. "If you want private tutoring today, you'll certainly be disappointed." The accident investigation team from the Society's headquarters just arrived in Xia City half an hour ago. Bai Xinyan gestured for Luo Nan to take off his clothes and put on his equipment. She raised her eyebrows when she saw Luo Nan staring blankly in place without moving. "Student Luo Nan, please don't make your disappointment so obvious, okay?" Ever since Hiyuan had revealed Bai Xinyan's intentions, Luo Nan's resistance to her teasing had increased greatly. In a certain sense, this could be considered a kind of confrontation. He thought for a moment and asked, "Investigation team. What does she mean by adding the accident?" Bai Xinyan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Gym Master Xiao, what did he say to you?" You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.